So today I met a guy. His name is Glen Rodley, I believe. It starts with an R and it ends with L-Y. I'm not sure exactly, but I think it's Rodley. He's a 93-year-old World War II veteran. And you wouldn't believe how hard it was for me to stop and talk to him. So today began rather clumsily. I spilled more coffee than I got to drink, and I slammed my finger in the car door, and normally I don't trip all over myself, but today was awful. It was quite a void of grace and poise, but it was beautiful outside. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful spring day in Mexico, Missouri. It's kind of a little overcast. Even in the scent of the gentle wind, you can smell rain is on the horizon. I woke up pretty joyfully and remained that way pretty much all day despite tripping all over myself. I got to homeschool group on time, which is awesome. Yay me! That's been a struggle, but my pastor and Jesus have both been praying for me, so I definitely felt that today. It was a very productive day. Thursday is homeschool group co-op day, which is always fun, and I always look forward to it. I brought lunch to my husband today at the tiniest little business you ever saw, a quaint little cabin sandwiched between Taco Bell and the spot-free car wash or something like that. I trudged into the radio with my delighted preschool girls and my hands full of my crock pot meal that I have been preparing for 2 days, but we just haven't had time or opportunity to sit down and eat it. So finally, lunch today, got to eat that. After lunch on my way home, everybody was just as busy as bees, rushing here and rushing there, and seemingly blind and deaf to the beauty of the new spring in 2017. And it's always saddened me a little bit to see that. Isn't life just more enjoyable when you slow down? You learn more when you're willing to stop and smell the roses, ponder life and everything, and I enjoyed that more and more. But then I passed Glen, and he was on his front porch in a beautifully manicured lawn. I could tell right off of the bat that he or someone had taken a lot of time to take care of it. There were some flowers in the front, and the grass was very uniform, the same type of, I don't know, I guess I'm just a lawn mowing nerd, maybe. Ever since I married Daniel. It couldn't be helped. It was beautiful. Anyway, so you could tell that he cared for his property. So Glenn was swinging on a white little porch swing, and he looked comfortable, but he looked really lonely. And then I felt it, an impression that I had to stop and talk to him. And I thought of a similar situation in which Beth Moore, she talks about it on YouTube. God told her to go brush an old man's hair in the middle of a busy airport, and the humor is just the struggle that she had, like, no, I can't do that. I mean, that's embarrassing. I'm not going to do that, God. You should watch that, by the way, if you have not seen it, but I continued on. I went a mile down the road trying to excuse the thought, praying that God would change his mind. But, yeah, I was just like, what do I even say? Plus, there's not a good parking space, and I have both of my girls with me. It's after lunch. It's a perfect time to go take a nap with the girls, or, you know, we haven't done much homeschooling outside of homeschool group, which is a lot like classes, but I just wanted to go home. So I was just like, God, what do I even say? I don't want to stop. That's embarrassing. What if he doesn't understand, or I don't know, what if I have to keep yelling at him because he can't hear me? So I turned around, but I still struggled. A mile later, I turned around, and the urge would just not go away. I knew God wanted me to stop, and I tried to bargain with him, and hoping the man had already gone inside, and the Lord was just happy that I turned around and was willing to maybe talk to him. Okay, you can have one. Go get a diaper on, child. Go. Go. Go ask Amelia to. Don't feed it to the dog. Don't feed it to the dog. Okay, bye. Love you. Okay, so I turned around the car, and I was still struggling. Should I stop? Should I not? The urge wouldn't go away. I knew God wanted me to go talk to this man. I considered disobeying God, even as I approached his house again, and I prayed once more for God to change his mind. And after that, I felt silence, and no more prodding, but just a little disappointment, and God wouldn't answer me anymore, perhaps because I already knew what his will was, and he was giving me a choice. And from Francis Chan, and not Jackie Chan, Francis Chan, that's who I'm talking about this time. Francis Chan and Nabil Qureshi are big inspirations to me, and I've heard from them and countless stories from my childhood. The amazing tales of what God can do when you are just obedient and are willing to follow in faith wherever he's going to lead you. So I resolved to stop, and I found a perfect place to park, turned off my poor sounding Grand Caravan engine that's on its last leg, but thank you to my father-in-law who fixed it to squeeze a little bit more life out of it. I struggled a little bit longer. I love God with all my heart. I love him to tears, but does he want me to feel awkward? He wants me to be comfortable, right? It's anyway a little unsafe to be just walking up to strange houses that you've never been to before without invitation and just striking up a conversation. That's scary. Maybe I'm supposed to ask him to church, I thought. Or at this point, my car is off and I'm just still contemplating, looking around, and trying to decide what to do. And then I thought, well, what if God wants me to be there and he's going to have a heart attack soon, and I need to be there to call 911? I don't know CPR, but I could at least call 911 or maybe lead him to the Lord or something. So what if he dies? And I said no to the Lord. That was it. I could not drive away after that. Being driven against my will, and driven just totally by his, I reluctantly unbuckled my girls and explained to my oldest daughter that Jesus wants me to go talk to this person over here. And I admit at that point I was just trying to convince myself as much as her. So I carefully walked toward the house while trying to think, what in the world am I going to say? Hand in hand, the three of us inched closer to his porch, and I wondered if he would think I was selling something, or if he would be surprised when I rounded the corner and started walking toward him. His voice immediately sounded really strange. He announced immediately that he had a cold, and I had never been given to sickness, so only a tiny little bit of me wanted to run the other way and excuse myself from talking to him. Well, God, he has a cold, so I can't talk to him. It's not until after these situations that you realize how stupid those excuses sound. But so this guy, Glen, his attitude about his inaudible voice was very apologetic, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of the lepers in the Bible who would announce from afar off that they were unclean, unclean. So, words came when I got closer, and my opening statement beyond introducing myself came strangely naturally. And although I extended my hand to shake his, found out that he is paralyzed on his right hand, so I shook his left. And I said, I was driving by and I saw you swinging, and you looked comfortable, but you looked a little lonely, so the Lord actually told me I needed to stop and talk to you. And he lightened up a little bit. He lit up. I found out, just like in Beth Moore's story, this guy's already a believer. But he was just really alone, very terribly alone. And he told me he had no kids. His wife had recently died. He did have one brother around. I knew that we knew some of the same people. He opened up really easily, and I was shocked at how good his hearing was, which was a relief. I didn't have to shout at all. There were a lot of cars going by, like right at lunchtime, so that was pretty loud, but he didn't have any trouble at all hearing me. I had more hearing problems than he did, but his arm's paralyzed because he contracted the West Nile virus. I think I'm saying that right. I learned more about him. I realized how painful his life must have been, like right from the get-go, right from the beginning, but he had such a sweet attitude. I could tell he had long since made his peace with God, and had surrendered even his healing to God, and made the statement that he looked forward to being healed on this side or the next of eternity. He just had a sweet, sweet, peaceful attitude about that, and he's getting up there in age. It just kind of made my day, though, because he told me a secret. Which I will keep in confidence. I'm not going to tell you guys, sorry. But it just made my day to hear about some random acts of kindness that he has upcoming soon. That I'm really just thrilled about that. It's a really sweet thing. He's a really sweet guy. We talked back and forth, and I promised to bring him a meal because the poor guy has no kids, no family around, and he has one good arm. He's up in years. He needs some help. So I told him that I would come back. But I tell you all these things because Glen taught me something really important, and I think the most important was obedience. I think God knew that I needed to talk to him more than he needed to talk to me. Obedience is just kind of new territory for me. And I'm talking about the same kind of obedience that caused Noah to build this huge structure. For most people would have called him crazy. I mean, I think I would if I had been there. I'm talking about the same obedience that Joseph had to lean on God's wisdom when it seemed he was a slave or imprisoned and that God had withdrawn his blessing. I'm talking about the same obedience and trust that Job had when it seemed like God himself had a knife to his throat and was threatening everything except his life. And even that, the same obedience that Ananias had when God told him to go talk to a man who is as notorious and evil as Hitler himself. Because God knew he had already turned around Saul's heart, a complete 180. There's a really beautiful song called Patching It Up, and it's sung by the Rochesters. It's a bluegrass gospel group, in which they question in the second verse, what if God stopped bearing all of our burdens and all of our hurting and Um, the last part of that says, why should I do anything for you? You never do anything for me. And it convicts me every time. How many times have I refused to move at the Holy Spirit's leading? Or I knew God wanted me to withhold my tongue, and I didn't. I lashed out when I knew I shouldn't have. I felt the prodding, and I didn't listen to it. And I made a mess every single time, you know? Do I ever do anything for the God that I love, even when I don't get anything out of the deal, even when I have to deny myself comfort and I have to risk being awkward and being seen as stupid and uncool? Do I ever risk anything for God as an American living very comfortably in the mid-USA? I've got everything that I could possibly need. Do I ever do anything for Him? I try to do the right thing for my own benefit, not because I'm motivated by the same pure love which caused Christ to heal a man mere minutes before his own body would be broken, before he was beaten beyond recognition and brutally crucified. I want to be obedient to the one who died for me. One of my favorite current verses says, for the eyes of the Lord move to and fro throughout all the earth, that He may find and strongly support someone whose heart is totally devoted, wholly devoted to His. That's 2 Corinthians 16, or Chronicles, 16:9. And I just want to have this resolve that when the Lord's eyes are passing over me in my little corner of the earth, I want Him to see me jumping up and down, saying, "Here I am. Use me, Lord. I'm here. I'll be obedient. Lead me." And I've been praying for that for years, but I think I'm just starting to mean it. So that's kind of what happened today. And I have to say, I don't regret at all talking to Glen. I'm so thankful that I listened to the Lord. And every time that I know that I've listened to the Lord and I knew it was Him speaking to me, I've been filled with such joy and peace. And the times that I disobeyed, I was filled with humiliation and unrest, and that's not a good place to be. So this movie is 18 minutes long, but thank you if you've come this far listening to me. I really appreciate it, and I'm gonna end it now.